Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Friday, November 2nd, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's football game between the 49ers and the Raiders. Then go over a couple college games from last night. NBA and NHL, going to go over those games. Look ahead to tonight's slate of games for each sport. Do the power rankings for both of those sports because I forgot to do them yesterday. Going to do my picks for college and the NFL for the weekend. And I'm going to close out with a new segment that I'm starting for the rest of the calendar year, and I might carry it over into 2019. I explained it yesterday. It's called You Can Bank on It, where I put together a single player, a parlay, to try to win cash. Yesterday's didn't work out, and I'll get into that before I close the podcast. All right, last night, the 49ers absolutely destroyed the Raiders by a score of 34-3. Nick Mullins gets the win in his first career start as the Niners go to 2-7. Oakland drops to 1-7. Mullins, 16 of 22, 262 yards and 3 touchdowns. Derek Carr was terrible, 16 of 21, 171 yards, and was replaced by A.J. McCarron in the fourth quarter. College football. Some interesting results in the games that were being played yesterday. Northern Illinois defeats Akron 36-26. Northern goes to 6-3. Akron drops to 4-4. Ohio defeats Western Michigan 59-14. Impressive win for the Bobcats as they go to 6-3. Western Michigan drops to 6-4. Number 12 UCF defeats Temple 52-40. Temple could have won this game, but some poor coaching decisions or coaching decisions that didn't play out cost Temple a chance as they drop to 5-4. UCF goes to 8-0. A pretty good win for the Knights as Mackenzie Milton comes back. And breaking baseball news before I go to NBA, Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers have a deal. $3 years, $93 million. I think that is a smart deal for both sides. And my first prediction that I had gotten correct in terms of off-season predictions has come true, and this was one of the ones I felt really good about happening. I just don't see Clayton Kershaw finishing out his phenomenal career with another franchise. So, good job by the Dodgers, good job by Kershaw by keeping it somewhat short-term and paying him decent money. So, 3 years, $93 million. Turns out to be $31 million a year. So, like I said, not a bad deal for Los Angeles. Now we're going to go to NBA. I just had to break the Clayton Kershaw news, and it was reported by Jeff Passan of Yahoo, as well as the great Ken Rosenthal. Basketball last night. The Thunder defeated the Hornets 111-107. Good win for OKC to go to 3-4. Charlotte drops to 4-5. Russell Westbrook had 29 in the win. Paul George had 11. Jeremy Grant had 10. Dennis Schroeder had 21 off the bench. Alex Abrinas off the bench had 25 points, including 5 3-pointers. Kemba Walker had 21, 5 boards and 6 assists. Nick Batum had 10, 7 rebounds and 6 assists. Jeremy Lamb had 13 points, 9 boards. Malik Monk off the bench had 21 points. Tony Parker had 17 off the bench. The Nuggets defeat the Cavaliers 110-91. Impressive win for Denver. Second night of a back-to-back. They're 7-1. Cleveland is 1-7. No Kevin Love for 6 weeks for Cleveland. We'll get more into that when we get to the power rankings. Juan Hernan Gomez had 23. Led the Nuggets in scoring, and that was off the bench as well. Trey Lyles off the bench had 12. Mason Plumlee off the bench had 11. Nikola Jokic did not have a good game. He only had 4 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. Gary Harris had 14. Jamal Murray had 10. Paul Millsap had 16. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, C.D. Osman had 13. Tristan Thompson and George Hill had 10 each. Jordan Clarkson off the bench had 17. Colin Sexton off the bench had 12. 76ers defeat the Clippers 122-113. Impressive win for Philly as Philly goes to 5-4. Clippers drop to 4-4. Joel Embiid was phenomenal. 41 points, 13 boards. Ben Simmons had 14 points. Markelle Fultz had 12. Robert Covington had 10. J.J. Redick off the bench at 18. Landry Shamet off the bench at 13. Daniel Gallinari had 25. Tobias Harris had 24. Lou Williams had 26 off the bench. Boban Marjanovic had 15 points and 11 boards off the bench. The Kings defeated the Hawks 146-115. Impressive win for Sacramento as they go to 6-3. Atlanta drops to 2-6. De'Aaron Fox had the best game of his young NBA career. 31 points, 10 boards, and 15 assists. I believe that's his first career triple-double. Buddy Hield had a nice game. 27 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists. Willie Cauley-Stein had 12 points and 6 boards. Nemanja Bjelica had 19 points. Marvin Bagley had 18 points off the bench. Trae Young and Kent Bazemore had 14 each. Trae Young also had 10 assists. Alex Len had 11. Jeremy Lin had 23 points. DeAndre Bembry had 13. Tyler Dorsey had 10 off the bench. The Celtics defeat the Bucks 117-113. They hand the Bucks their first loss as they drop to 7-1. Boston goes to 6-2. Kyrie Irving had 28. Al Horford at 18. Jason Tatum at 12. Gordon Hayward at 18. And Samuel Ejiofor had 10, starting in place for Jaylen Brown. Marcus Morris off the bench had 17. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 33 points and 11 boards in his return game off the concussion. Chris Middleton had 16. Malcolm Brogdon had 16. Eric Bledsoe had 13 and 7 assists as well. The Blazers defeat the Pelicans 132-119. Portland goes to 6-2. New Orleans drops to 4-4. Anthony Davis was hurt. Damian Lillard had 26 points and 7 boards and 6 assists. Jusuf Nurkic had 20. Al-Farouq Aminu had 17. And starting in place of Mo Harkless, Jake Layman had 11. Evan Turner off the bench had 14 points, 7 boards, and 7 assists. Nick Stauskas off the bench had 10. Etuan Moore had 19. Drew Holiday had 17 with 10 assists. Nikola Mirotic had 18 points and 13 boards. Julius Randle had 29 points off the bench with 6 boards and 3 assists. Ian Clark had 10 off the bench. Tonight's slate is a pretty steep one. You have the Clippers and the Magic, the Rockets and the Nets at 7:30, 8 o'clock on ESPN. You have the Thunder and the Wizards. This game isn't as nice as it would have looked in the preseason because Washington's off to a slow start as well as the Thunder. Thunder on the second night of a back-to-back, they could be looking ahead a little bit, but the Wizards have not been playing well at all, so I'm not risking a chance here taking the Wizards at home. So give me Russell Westbrook and the Thunder to get their 4th straight win to get back to 500. You have the Pacers and the Bulls. Could be a trap game for the Pacers there. 8:30 you have the Knicks at the Mavericks. You have at 9 o'clock the Grizzlies and the Jazz. 10 o'clock you have the Raptors at the Suns. Could be a trap game. First game on the West Coast for Toronto. And you have at 10:30 on ESPN, you have the Timberwolves at the Warriors. Golden State's just the best team in sports. They're going to continue to steamroll inferior teams. Jimmy Butler probably isn't playing, so give me the Warriors to win by double digits there. All right, now we're going to go to hockey. The NHL had a busy slate yesterday. In the NHL Global Series, the Jets defeat the Panthers 4-2 in the first game. As they go to 8-4-1, Panthers drop to 2-5-3. The number one star of the game with a hat trick, Patrick Laine. He's a Finland native, so appropriate of him to get the hat trick. Number 2 star of the game is Dustin Byfuglien with 3 assists. The number 3 star of the game with the goal, Keith Yandel. The Stars defeat the Maple Leafs 2-1. Good win for Dallas as they go to 7-5. Toronto drops to 8-5. The number 1 star of the game with 31 saves on 32 shots. Backup goaltender, Anton Khudobin. The number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Tyler Seguin. The number 3 star of the game with the goal, Patrick Marleau. The Islanders defeat the Penguins 3-2 in a shootout. Another nice win for the New York Islanders as they're in the first place tie with the Penguins in that division. They're 7-4-1. Pittsburgh is 6-2-3. The number 1 star of the game with 29 saves on 31 shots, Thomas Greiss. The number 2 star of the game with the goal, Josh Bailey. The number 3 star of the game with the goal, new captain, Anders Lee. The Canadiens defeat the Capitals 6-4. A crazy win for Montreal as they go to 7-3-2. Washington drops to 5-4-2. The number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And those were his first 2 NHL goals. The number 2 star of the game with 2 goals, Brendan Gallagher. And the number 3 star of the game with 2 goals, Lars Eller. And the crazy thing about this game is that the Capitals had a 4-3 lead going into the third period, and Montreal scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes of regulation, including the empty net goal. And with about 3 minutes left in the third period, Jesperi Kotkaniemi ties it at 4 apiece. Then, with 22 seconds left in regulation, Max Domi gives the Habs the 5-4 lead, and literally 2 seconds later on the empty net goal, they put it away at 6-4. Impressive win for Montreal. The Sens defeat the Sabres 4-2. Good win for Ottawa as they go to 5-5-2. Buffalo drops to 6-5-2. The number 1 star of the game with 46 saves on 48 shots, Craig Anderson. The number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Thomas Chabot. The number 3 star of the game with the goal in his 1,000th NHL game, Jason Pominville. The Red Wings defeat the Devils 4-3. A nice win for Detroit as they go to 4-7-2. New Jersey drops to 5-4-1. The number 1 star of the game with 25 saves on 28 shots, Jimmy Howard. The number 2 star of the game with a goal, Justin Abdelkader. And the number 3 star of the game with 27 saves on 31 shots in his first game back, Corey Schneider. The Predators defeat the Lightning 4-1. Impressive win for Nashville as they go to 10-3. They're 6-0 on the road. Tampa Bay drops to 8-3-1. The number 1 star of the game with 42 saves on 43 shots, Pekka Rinne, in his return from injury. And the number 2 star of the game didn't have any points but just played a nice game, Matthew Joseph. And the number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Ryan Johansson. The Blues defeated the Golden Knights 5-3. The Blues go to 4-4-3. Vegas drops to 5-7-3. The number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, Oscar Sundqvist. The number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Tyler Bozak. And the number 3 star of the game with an assist, Robbie Fabry. The Flames defeated the Avalanche 5-6. The Flames actually were trailing by 3 going into the third period, and they scored 5 straight unanswered goals to take the lead. And this was a really good win for Calgary with a goal and 2 assists. The number 1 star of the game was Mark Giordano. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and an assist, Mikhail Backlund. And the number 3 star of the game with 3 assists, Matthew Tkachuk. The Oilers defeat the Blackhawks 4-0. Good win for Edmonton as they go to 7-4-1. Chicago drops to 6-5-3. The number 1 star of the game with 40 saves on 40 shots, the backup goaltender Mikko Koskinen. The number 2 star of the game with 2 goals, Drake Kagula. And the number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Tobias Ryder. The Flyers defeat the Kings 5-2. Impressive win for Philadelphia as they go to 6-7-1, and LA drops to 3-8-1. The number 1 star of the game with a goal, Ivan Provorov. The number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Jeff Gardner. And the number 3 star of the game with a goal and assist, Oscar Lindblom. The Jackets defeat the Sharks 4-1. Impressive win for Columbus and John Tortorella as they go to 7-5. San Jose drops to 6-4-3. The number 1 star of the game with a goal and assist, Anthony Duclair. The number 2 star of the game with 44 saves on 45 shots, Sergei Bobrovsky. And the number 3 star of the game with an assist, Marcus Nutavara. And last but not least, the Rangers defeat the Ducks 3-2 in a shootout. 2 straight wins for the Rangers as they go to 5-7-1. Anaheim, winless in their last 7, now drops to 5-6-3. The number 1 star of the game with 28 saves on 30 shots, backup goaltender Alexander Gergachev. The number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Ryan Getzlaf. The number 3 star of the game with the goal and assist, Ricard Raquel. Going on right now is the second game of the Global Series. The Panthers have a 3-2 lead on the Jets. We'll see if they hang on to get a much-needed win. I believe Roberto Luongo's back in net for the Panthers in this one. In 2 games tonight, both 10 o'clock Eastern games. Avalanche Canucks, battle of the surprise of the Western Conference so far, hosting a team that boasts one of the best lines in the league with Mikko Riskinen, Gabriel Landeskog, and Nathan MacKinnon. And Hurricanes Coyotes, 2 more surprise teams going head-to-head. This run Arizona's been on has been incredible. I'm going to get to their power rankings in a minute, leading theirs in the NHL. NBA power rankings I'm going to do first. Going to try to be quick, although I have some words on some certain teams. Number 30 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They fired Ty Lue the other day. Larry Drew's the intern coach there. Kevin Love's out for 6 weeks. Number 29 is the Phoenix Suns. They had that terrible home loss against the Spurs on Wednesday night. They just looked listless. Number 28 is the Atlanta Hawks. They've been in some of these games after they got absolutely demolished by the Knicks on opening night, and then they get demolished last night by Sacramento. And they're starting to look like the worst team in the Eastern Conference, as many of us predicted, although the Cavs have been pretty bad, but they don't have Kevin Love right now. They're better with Kevin Love, obviously. Number 27 is the New York Knicks. They beat the Nets on Monday. They should have beaten Indiana on Wednesday, but Victor Oladipo got hot late in that game and carried the Pacers. They have a nice game tonight against Luka Doncic and the Mavs, so I'm interested to see how they play. David Fizdale's done a nice job getting that Knicks team to play hard and whatnot. My what if with the Knicks is actually Porzingis, and what if he didn't tear his ACL? What if he's healthy right now? What's this team's record? I'm going to say that they're probably 5-3, and they probably still would have lost to Golden State, Miami, and Milwaukee, and they probably would have beaten Indiana Wednesday. They would have beaten Brooklyn in that Friday night game a couple weeks ago, and they would have knocked off the Celtics at home in that Saturday night game at MSG. Number 26 is the Chicago Bulls. Zach LaVine has been one of the more improved players in the NBA this year. Interested to see how much longer Fred Hoiberg lasts, because that was just a terrible loss, or not terrible losing to Golden State, but just a humiliating loss to say the least when Klay Thompson went off in that game. 25 is the Washington Wizards. Another coach on the hot seat is Scott Brooks. I'm interested to see how they perform on national TV tonight against the Thunder. I picked OKC earlier in the podcast. 24 is the Orlando Magic. They picked off the Celtics recently, but ever since then, they really haven't played well. Number 23 is the Dallas Mavericks. Nearly picked off the Lakers in Los Angeles, but LeBron made the free throw. That was the difference in the game. They have a nice one at home against the Knicks in a game which they should be able to win. Number 22 is the Houston Rockets. Huge underachievers so far to start the year. They're probably the biggest flop in the NBA right now, sans the Harden injury. And Harden's supposed to be back tonight in Brooklyn, but we'll see about that. Number 21 is the Brooklyn Nets. They just had a listless performance at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks on Monday. Then they bounced back with a good win over the Pistons. A little bit of a revenge game for them because they lost to the Pistons on opening night. Number 20 is the Memphis Grizzlies. They're a surprising 4-2 to begin the year. J.B. Bickerstaff's done a nice job. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s played well. and their two stars in Mike Conley and Marcus Stahl have stayed healthy for the most part. 19th, the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, they've played well in some games and they've laid eggs in others. They had the nice win over the Knicks, that blowout win, and then they laid an egg against Sacramento, and then they beat Portland. So they've been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde, although this should be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. Number 18 is the Charlotte Hornets. Disappointing loss against the Thunder last night, in my opinion. Number 17 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've won 3 straight after their winless start. Russell Westbrook starting to get it going. Paul George has been good for the most part, although he didn't play that great in Charlotte. And I do like the Thunder's chances tonight against the Wizards team that may fire their coach soon. The surprise of the NBA so far is at number 16, and that is the Sacramento Kings. The reason why they're not higher than this is because I'm not sure if this is going to last. They had an impressive win at Atlanta. They had the impressive win at Miami. They should have potentially beaten the Jazz on opening night, so in theory they should be 7-2. But give the Kings credit. Dave Yeager's done phenomenal. He's saving his job right now. De'Aaron Fox has had a breakout so far this year. Willie Cauley-Stein's playing well. He's in a contract year. Marvin Bagley's been solid off the bench. I'm interested to see this team in their progress going forward. 15's Los Angeles Clippers. Disappointing loss to Philly. I thought there was a chance they win that game outright. That was a part of my parlay. And the Kings were involved too, but they kind of spoiled it as well. But the Clippers, they've played hard for the most part. And I expect them to get it going a little bit as their schedule eases up. 14's the Los Angeles Lakers. They're 3-5. They had the big win against Dallas on Wednesday night. And what's interesting about them is that there was a story that came out today suggesting that Luke Walton is in trouble with his job, and if they don't turn it around soon, that he could be axed. So don't rule him out for the next coach fired either. But the key here is that LeBron James supports Walton, so maybe he doesn't get fired. Number 13 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had a really impressive win over the Lakers on Monday night, but they're still a mess. Jimmy Butler is sitting out of games. Derrick Rose carried them to that win over Utah on Halloween night with the 50-point game. And they're probably going to lose tonight at Golden State. Number 12 is the New Orleans Pelicans. They're 500. Anthony Davis has been hurt, but when Anthony Davis has been healthy, they've been a pretty good team, and that is why I think right now Davis should be the MVP favorite alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. Number 11 is the Philadelphia 76ers. They got an important win last night against the Clippers. They've been taking care of business at home, but they're winless on the road. They probably should have beaten the Pistons, but Blake Griffin had that monster game. Number 10 is the Detroit Pistons. Speaking of which, they're off to a surprising start this year. They predictably lost at Brooklyn. Brooklyn was favored on Halloween night, and I thought that Brooklyn was going to win that game, and I was right about that. But this Pistons team looks like the favorite for that last playoff spot in the East. I'm not ready to admit that I was wrong about them because I think they're a Blake Griffin injury away from a disaster. And Charlotte, I like how they've played this year so far, especially in their home building, even though they had those close losses against Oklahoma City and Giannis and the Bucks on opening night. So I still think it's up for grabs between them and Charlotte. 9 is the Utah Jazz. That was a very disappointing loss in Minnesota without Butler. But if Derrick Rose doesn't go off in that game, then they probably win. Number 8 is the San Antonio Spurs. I've been very impressed with them. They laid the wood to the Suns the other night on national television, proving to everybody that they're still here and they're still a contender, at least in the Western Conference. Not a title contender per se, but a Western Conference playoff contender. Greg Popovich has to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year right now, along with Dave Yeager and J.B. Bickerstaff, obviously Dwayne Casey, among others. Number 7 is the Indiana Pacers. They're ahead of the Spurs because they beat the Spurs. a couple weeks ago in San Antonio in a game that I thought the Spurs were going to win. But Indiana's been solid so far. They grinded out that road win at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks on Halloween night in a game that they probably should have lost. And Victor Oladipo is continuing his fine play. Number 6 is the Portland Trailblazers. They're very good. They got that great win at Indiana the other night, and they took care of business against the Anthony Davis-less Pelicans. And Terry Stotts has done a nice job so far with this team. Dame Lillard's been playing great all-around ball. 5 is the Boston Celtics. They had a really good win last night against the Bucks. Probably their best win of the season so far. They're probably going to have more good wins better than that. And they won that game without Jaylen Brown. That made it even more impressive. Number 4 is the Denver Nuggets. Their lone loss came against LeBron and the Lakers. Other than that, they've been very good. Number 3 is the Toronto Raptors. With Kawhi Leonard, they're unbeaten. And their lone loss came without Kawhi Leonard, obviously, in Milwaukee against the Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo. So the Raptors are right there with the Celtics among the East's best. And the Bucks have to be mentioned right now, even though they lost to the Celtics in a game that was sort of a prove-it game for Milwaukee, but they came up just a bit short. But they have to be happy with the way they played in Boston. They could have won that game. Missed free throws cost them down the stretch, and Giannis missed a brutal one in that game down the stretch. But they're very good, and Giannis with Anthony Davis should be the co-MVP favorites. And number 1 is the Golden State Warriors. Nobody's dethroning this team right now unless there are some injuries on Golden State or if I just see some lousiness from the Warriors, which they haven't shown any lousiness other than that first half in Utah in that Friday night game earlier in the year. Hockey Power Rankings. Number 31 is the Florida Panthers. They're getting their goaltender back now. I believe he's playing in that game that's being played with the Jets right now. But they got to get going before their coach could potentially get axed. Number 30 is the Detroit Red Wings. Speaking of coaches that might get axed, Jeff Blashill right now I think is safe. He's won a couple games in a row here against Columbus and New Jersey. Number 29 is the New York Rangers. They won back-to-back games against 2 Western Conference teams that should be contenders, and the Sharks and the Ducks on this West Coast trip. But my issue with them is that they've been having trouble closing games. They gave up that late goal in Los Angeles that cost them the Kings game. And Thomas Hertl scored that tying goal with about a second left on Tuesday night to force overtime. And then Ricard Raquel scored a tying goal against them in the final minute of last night's game. So my issue with them is that they're having a hard time closing games out. We got to give credit where credit's due. They're winning games, and they have a chance to go for 3 in a row on Sunday night at home against the Buffalo Sabres. That game is very winnable for the Rangers. I'll talk about that on Sunday on that podcast. Number 28 is the New Jersey Devils. Boy, have they fallen off since that hot start. Bad loss against the Red Wings. Bad loss against the Lightning. 27 is the St. Louis Blues. They had a good win over Vegas last night, but I still sense some issues there. 26 is the Anaheim Ducks. Boy, is that team fallen. 7 straight games without a win. 25 is the Los Angeles Kings. They had that big win over the Rangers, but haven't done much since then. 24 is the Philadelphia Flyers. Probably should be higher than this. Winning games out on the West Coast. Maybe this will help them going forward. They got Ivan Provorov back in the lineup, so that should help. 23 is the Ottawa Senators. They've been one of the surprises of the league so far. They're at 500 right now. Number 22 is the Buffalo Sabres. They're 6-5-2. Possible trap game for them on Sunday, New York against the Rangers that I just talked about a couple minutes ago. But they've certainly been a surprise so far this year too. 21 is the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who've been, I think, the league's biggest disappointment so far this year. Number 20 is the Washington Capitals. Speaking of disappointments, this is probably the disappointment of the Eastern Conference so far. They haven't won back-to-back games yet this season. Number 19 is the San Jose Sharks. Disappointing loss against Columbus, and then they had that brutal loss against the Rangers on Tuesday night too. Speaking of the Jackets, they're 18. They've rebounded from some bad losses, and they bounced back nicely and won some games as well. That's been their trend this season. 17 is the Carolina Hurricanes. They've been surprisingly good so far. Sebastian Aho has improved. Number 16 is the Chicago Blackhawks. They've fallen off after a hot start. Number 15 is the Arizona Coyotes. They've been a huge surprise, right up there with Vancouver as the surprise of the West so far. 14 is the Edmonton Oilers. They've played brilliant hockey since their slow start. 13, I just mentioned the Canucks. They're number 13. They've won some good games this year. Number 12 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. You can make a case that they're the most disappointing team in the East, with those two disappointing losses to the Islanders recently, and they've had some other bad losses this year too. The Islanders are number 11. They've been very, very impressive, and they've surprised some teams, not just the Penguins, but they killed Philadelphia and Philadelphia as well. They have some games against the Rangers next week. I'm interested to see how it goes for them, and as well as the Rangers, who have started to play a little bit better too. The number 10 team is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've fallen off after a hot start. No Austin Matthews, and they surely have missed him. Number 9 is the Dallas Stars. They had a good win in Montreal, and then they had a good win in Toronto. Number 8 is Montreal. They had that great come-from-behind win against Washington last night. Number 7 is Calgary. They've bounced back nicely after that terrible loss to Pittsburgh. Number 6 is Boston. A little Jekyll and Hyde. They've been playing Yaroslav Halak a lot in net because Tuukka Rask has struggled and Halak has not. 5 is the Colorado Avalanche. They've been pretty good despite that bad loss last night. Number 4 is the Minnesota Wild. They've put together a nice little run. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. Number 3 is the Winnipeg Jets. They've been playing good hockey lately, although they're trailing right now to Florida. Number 2 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're the team to beat in the East. But the team that defeated them last night is the number 1 team. That's the Nashville Predators. They're undefeated on the road so far. Pekka Rinne's back from injury. And last night could have been a Stanley Cup final preview between the top 2 teams in my power rankings. Now I'm going to do my picks for college football for the weekend. So many intriguing games. This is my favorite weekend so far in football, not just in the NFL, but in college. So many big games and big spots for contenders in both the NFL and college. Going to start obviously with the college picks because there's games tonight and there are games tomorrow, obviously. Let's start with tonight. You have Pitt at Virginia, 7:30 ESPN2. Virginia's number 25 in the country. That's hard to believe, but here we are. Amazingly enough, the winner of this game can end up in first in the Coastal Division, depending on other results. The Cavs are the better team. They're home. Give me them the win. And they are a 7-point favorite. I think they cover that. Western Kentucky at Middle Tennessee, 8 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Middle Tennessee is the better team. I like them to win this game. And I think they'll cover the number with these, and they're favored by 13.5. Colorado at Arizona, 10:30 on Fox Sports 1. Khalil Tate is back, and the Wildcats are a team that's improved since their slow start. Meanwhile, the Buffaloes are a team that hasn't looked great of late, especially after losing that tough game to Oregon State at home in overtime. I like the Wildcats here at home. So give me Arizona. They're laying 3, and I think they'll cover the 3. Saturday games, you have Louisville at Clemson, 12 o'clock on ABC. The Cardinals have been an absolute flop this year in the ACC, but nobody's talking about them really being such a big flop because of how disappointing Florida State's been. Give me Clemson at home. They're laying 39. The over-under is 61, but I like the over here. Nebraska at Ohio State, 12 o'clock on Fox. This could be a look-ahead spot for Ohio State. And there's a little bit of drama. There's some rumors that this could be Urban Meyer's last year. But no way. Give me the Buckeyes at home. They're winning this game big. So give me the Buckeyes at home, and they'll cover the 19. I had the number at 17.5, but it went up to 19. Number 19, Syracuse at Wake Forest, 12 o'clock on the ACC network. This game screams trap for the Orange. Wake Forest is winning this game outright. They're plus 185 on the money line. That's my money line pick of the week. And also, I'm taking the 6 as the podcast play as well. The over-under 77. So Wake Forest wins, take the money line, and the podcast play is the plus 6. Texas A&M at Auburn, 12 o'clock on ESPN. The Aggies have overachieved and the Tigers have underachieved. The Aggies are obviously have the 20 by their name. Oh, and by the way, Syracuse is 19. Didn't even think about that when making that selection. I don't love the Aggies on the road, but this is a tough call. Give me Auburn at home. I don't feel good about this game at all. This is honestly the toughest game I had to pick for the weekend. So give me Auburn and give me them to cover the 3.5. Number 24, Iowa State at Kansas, 12 o'clock on the Fox Sports Network. Classic letdown spot for the Jayhawks after the upset win over TCU. Give me Iowa State, and they'll cover the number with ease, and they're favored by 15. South Carolina at Ole Miss, 12 o'clock on the SEC Network. By the way, the over-under for the Iowa State-Kansas game is 46. So South Carolina, Ole Miss. This is another tough call. Ole Miss has picked some people off at home this year. But South Carolina has to have this game. This is a pick 'em. So give me South Carolina here, the over-under 68. Rutgers at Wisconsin, 12 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Wisconsin's going to win big, and they'll cover the big number at 38. I believe it's 38. Let's just double check here. 37.5, so it was a half point off. So they'll cover that number with ease. Michigan State at Maryland, 12 o'clock on ESPN2. Either outcome wouldn't surprise me. Sparty's the better team. And they'll win this game. Terps are dealing with turmoil with the firing of DJ Durkin, so give me Michigan State, and they'll cover the 2.5. The over-under is 45. Oklahoma State at Baylor, 12 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Classic letdown spot for the Cowboys as the Bears take it at home. Give me Baylor outright. They'll cover the 7. The over-under 68.5. Air Force at Army, 12 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. I like Army here, and they'll cover the 6.5. The over-under is 42. Memphis at East Carolina, 12 o'clock on ESPNU. The Tigers are the better team. They'll win. They're favored by 11.5, but I'm going to take over 64.5. Georgia Tech at North Carolina, 12 o'clock on the ACC Network. You can make a case that North Carolina can win this game with Georgia Tech looking ahead. But the Yellow Jackets are playing really good football. That was very impressive what they did to Virginia Tech in Lane Stadium last Thursday night. So give me Georgia Tech, and I think they'll cover the 5. The over-under is 64. Texas State at Georgia State, 2 o'clock on ESPN+. I like Georgia State here. The over-under is 52, but I think Texas State covers the 6.5. San Jose State at Wyoming, 2 o'clock. I think Wyoming wins here thanks to a letdown after San Jose State's win. They'll cover the 14. The over-under is 38, although I do like the over, too. South Alabama at Arkansas State, 3 o'clock on ESPN+. Tough call here in terms of picking a side or a total. I think Arkansas State wins the game, but total-wise, total/side-wise is tough. I think the Jackrabbits are going to cover. I think the Red Wolves win by 10. Georgia Southern at UL Monroe, 3 o'clock on ESPN3. Trap game for the Eagles, so I like UL Monroe to pull off the outright upset. They're getting 7. The over-under is 59.5. So +7 with a sprinkle on the money line because I think UL Monroe wins outright. Marshall at Southern Miss, 3 o'clock. I think Southern Miss wins this game outright. They're getting 2.5. That's my play here. The over-under is 47.5. Number 6, Georgia at number 9, Kentucky. 3:30, CBS. I don't know who's calling this game because obviously Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson will be in Baton Rouge. We'll get to that pick later on in the podcast. Huge game in Lexington and perhaps the biggest Kentucky football game this century. This game will be competitive for the most part. I think Kentucky's defense will keep them in the game, but I think the Bulldogs win a game that will be relatively close, but I think they'll pull away late. So give me Georgia. I think they'll barely cover the 9. The over-under is 44.5. So I think Georgia's going to win by somewhere between 10 and 13 points. I think a late touchdown puts it away for the Bulldogs to get the late cover for them. Number 13, West Virginia at number 17, Texas, 3:30 on Fox. A huge game in the Big 12. And it could go a long way determining if one of these teams face off against Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. And I'm assuming Oklahoma gets there. We don't know that for sure. These two teams could end up facing each other, perhaps, if Oklahoma stumbles down the way. But there's a lot of intrigue with the Big 12 right now. The Longhorns are home, and I think are the safer pick here, as long as Sam Ehlinger is healthy and ready to go. He played last week and played pretty well, even though they lost. So give me Texas in a high-scoring affair. They're laying 2. The over-under is 58. I'm going to take the -2. I think that's a safer bet than the over because West Virginia's defense isn't that bad, and neither is Texas's. So I think 58's the right number for the total. So give me Texas to win and cover the 2. I think they win by, I'm going to say by 7. I could see this being like a 31-24 type of game. And that would add up to 57, so that would mean the under. But yeah, -2 is the play there, with Texas obviously winning. Number 16, Iowa at Purdue, 3:30 on ESPN2. Here's a fun game. Boiler up for a win. Tyler Trent, hopefully in the house again for this. So, give me Purdue. They'll cover the 3. The over-under is 51. Florida State at number 21, NC State, 3:30 ABC. Florida State looked like hot garbage last week, so give me NC State and they'll cover that 9 points with ease. The over-under is 53.5. Liberty at UMass, 3:30. Terrible game between two bad teams. Liberty's actually getting 1.5. I like them to win outright, so give me Liberty plus the 1.5. The over-under is 70.5. UTEP at Rice, 3:30 on ESPN3. This is perhaps the worst game you'll see all year. That's funny because we said that about the Raiders-49ers game yesterday, and that turned out to be right in terms of a lopsided score. But I don't know if this will be lopsided or just flat out like a 12-9 type of game between these two terrible teams. Give me Rice at home. They're laying 1. The over-under is 45. Tulane at South Florida, 3:30 on CBS Sportsnet. I like South Florida here. They're laying 6. The over-under is 59.5, and give me the over. Navy at Cincinnati, 3:30 on ESPNU. The pick here is Cincinnati. They're laying 13.5. The over-under is 49. I like the over. Louisiana at Troy, 3:30 on ESPN+. I think Troy wins this game. They're laying 10. The over-under 64. I think they cover the 10. But I don't feel great about it. Kansas State at TCU, 3:30 on Fox Sports 1. Kansas State, I think, is going to win this game outright. I think they're going to win this game outright. They're getting 8.5. The money line's plus 255. I take a stab at it. The over-under is 46. Minnesota at Illinois, 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. I like Minnesota to win the game. They're favored by 9.5. The over-under 63.5. I think Minnesota wins by double digits, so give me the 9.5. Number 14, Penn State at number 5, Michigan, 3:30 on ESPN. This is a fun one on the Disney Mothership for a 3:45 game. The Wolverine season has had a redemption tour for the most part after a disappointing season last year. And the redemption tour continues here with a big win over the Nittany Lions. So give me Michigan here to win. But they're laying 12. The over-under is 53. This is a tough call in terms of a side or a total. Let's go with over 53. I think both teams will put up some points. Number 22, Boston College at Virginia Tech, 3:45 on the ACC Network. With how awful the Hokies were last week without their quarterback, Josh Jackson, I cannot pick them here. The logic reason to pick the Hokies is because the Eagles are looking ahead to their big game next week against Clemson. But I think the Eagles survive a close one here. So give me Boston College. They're laying 2. Give me the 2 points. The over-under is 57. I'm going to hold my breath for this one because if Virginia Tech wins this game, I am just going to be shaking my head on Sunday's podcast. Missouri at number 11, Florida, 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. I like Florida here. They're laying 6. The over-under is 57.5. Tough call here, but I'm going to take the under 57.5. Number 15, Utah at Arizona State, 4 o'clock on the Pac-12 Network. Classic trap spot for the Utes. Herm Edwards gets another big win. So give me Arizona State. They're getting 7. The money line's plus 230. I'm going to say they win that game outright. So give me the plus 7 and the money line. The over-under is 56. Charlotte at Tennessee, 4 o'clock on SEC Network alternate channel. Tennessee is the pick here. Obviously, they're laying 22. The over-under is 47.5. Give me the over. I think the number's a little low. Alcorn State at New Mexico State is a 4 o'clock game. Give me New Mexico State at home. Yeah, Alcorn State's one of the better teams in the FCS, but I don't think that they'll pull off an upset. Appalachian State at Coastal Carolina, 5 o'clock on ESPN+. I like Appalachian State here on the road, but I think that's too many points, so I think Coastal Carolina covers the 14.5. The over-under is 55.5. UConn at Tulsa, 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. I like Tulsa in this game. They're an 18-point favorite, but I'm going to take over 55.5. 58.5, my bad. I think both teams eclipse 30. Houston at SMU, 7 o'clock on ESPNU. Possible trap for the Cougars. I say so, but the Cougs survive. So give me Houston, but the pick here, I gave it away, is the plus 14 with SMU. I think this is a single-digit game. The over-under is pretty high at 70.5. Duke at Miami, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Upset special by the Blue Devils, who always thrive as dogs. Plus, the Canes have not looked good at all of late. So give me Duke. They're getting 9. The money line's plus 270, so give me the plus 9 and the plus 270. And over 50.5. I like the over here too, but my main player is the plus 9 and in a stab on the plus 270. Number 4, Notre Dame at Northwestern, 7:15 on ESPN. The Wildcats thrive as underdogs too, like the Blue Devils, but always seem to disappoint in primetime. So I'm going to say that the Irish pull away late in the fourth quarter in this one. So give me Notre Dame. They're a 10-point favorite. The over-under is 53.5. I'm going to go with the over as the play here. I just think 10 is the right number, so I'm going to take the over here. Louisiana Tech at Mississippi State, 7:30 on the SEC Network. Don't be shocked if this game is close for a while. Give me Mississippi State, but I think Louisiana Tech covers the 23.5. The over-under is 48.5. UCLA at Oregon, 7:30 on Fox. Chip Kelly's return to Eugene will result in another big flat L for the Bruins. So give me Oregon. They're laying 10.5. The over-under 63. So I think they'll cover the 10.5, although the hook scares me. FAU at FIU, 7:30. I think FAU's been the biggest flop in the country this year, especially in terms of group of 5 teams. So give me FIU here to pull off the win at home. I think they'll cover the 2.5. The over-under is 59.5. UTSA at UAB, 7:30. I think UAB wins. They're a 22-point favorite, but the play here is over 42.5. I think the Blazers are going to score some points. Here we go. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, LSU. 8 o'clock. CBS. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson on the call of this game. Game of the year in college football so far. Game day is going to Baton Rouge. The winner of this game could very well be in the college football playoff. All that said, the Tide are better. They're the best team in the country. They have the Heisman favorite in Tua Tagovailoa and will get the win in Baton Rouge. So give me Alabama. The number's 14.5. The over-under is 53.5. The play here is over 53.5. And they don't feel great about it. I'm going to say that the final score of this game is 30. Like something like 37-20. I can see this being like a 37-20. So there's your over. And then in that case, I would have Alabama covering the 14.5. But the safer play here is over 53.5. Because I think the Tide are going to score on that defense. And I wouldn't be shocked if they had a couple defensive touchdowns in this game. Number 7, Oklahoma at Texas Tech, 8 o'clock on ABC. Saturday nights in Lubbock always tend to be wild. Expect a high-scoring affair for Kyler Murray and the Sooners to keep their playoff hopes alive here with a narrow win. So give me Oklahoma. The over-under 77.5, but I'm going to take the Red Raiders to cover the 13. Stanford at Washington, 9 o'clock on the Pac-12 Network. I'm sure no one expected this game to be on the Pac-12 Network before the season began, considering these teams were thought out to be ranked at this point of the year. Huskies win at home. Give me Washington. They're laying 10.5. The over-under is 45.5. Tough call, but I think they'll cover the number. So, there you go. USC at Oregon State, 10 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Clay Helling will survive another week as his team will survive in Corvallis. Just give me USC. They're minus 16, but the play here is over 63.5. I think both these teams will put up some points. BYU at Boise State, 10:15 on ESPN2. The Broncos are the better team on the blue turf, so give me Boise State. The over-under is 55. I think they'll cover the 13 with ease. San Diego State at New Mexico, 10:15 on ESPNU. I like San Diego State here. They're favored by 10.5. The over-under is 45. I like the over here because I think the half point scares me in terms of the point spread. I think San Diego State will be able to put up 30, and I don't see New Mexico scoring less than 15. So there you go with the case for the over. Number 23, Fresno State at UNLV, 10:30 on CBS Sports Network. Fresno deserves to be ranked. Good for them. They'll win here. They're favored by 26. The over-under 60.5, but I'm going to take the over here because I think that's the safer play. Cal at number 8, Washington State, 10:45 on ESPN2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is on ESPN. My bad. Big spot for Washington State. There are some folks out there that think that Cal will pull off the outright upset. I'm not one of them. Pullman at night is hard to play, and I think Washington State wins. So give me the Huskies at home. I mentioned that they're a 9.5-point favorite. The over-under is 50. I think the play here is the over, so give me the over. Utah State at Hawaii at midnight, East Coast time. Too bad Hawaii lost their quarterback, or else this would be more competitive. Utah State's going to win. They're favored by 19.5. The over-under 71. This is hard. A lot of people like the points in the over. But I tend to lean Utah State and the under. Let's go with the under. Let's be a little bold here. I think this game will be out of reach to the point where Hawaii, without their quarterback, will not put up some points, and then Utah State will just run out the clock and whatnot. So Utah State wins by a comfortable margin, but I like the under 71. And that's it for the college side. Let's go to the NFL side now. I'm off to an 0-1 start for the week, as I stupidly took Derek Carr and the Raiders to win in San Francisco against Nick Mullins and the 49ers. First off, we have the Falcons at the Redskins. Falcons 3-4. Washington is 5-2. 1 o'clock on Fox. I think this is the game that Kenny Albert's going to call this week. I don't know the assignments by heart, but if I had to guess, I feel like this is his game. The Falcons are coming off their bye, and 2 weeks ago they won a Monday night home game against the pitiful New York Football Giants. The Redskins are coming off a divisional road win in East Rutherford against those same pitiful New York Football Giants. The Falcons need this game badly, but the Redskins are being overlooked in the NFC and are good at home and will win this game. Score, Washington 30, Atlanta 23. The play here is the -1.5. The over-under is 48. Chicago Bears at the Buffalo Bills, 1 o'clock on Fox. Bears are 4-3. The Bills are 2-6. The Bears are coming off a much-needed home win over the New York Jets. The Bills are coming off a Monday night divisional home loss against the New England Patriots. Khalil Mack isn't playing this weekend, and the Bears have some divisional games coming up, so there's a case to be made for them. They'll be looking ahead. That said, the Bills are starting Nathan Peterman, and I don't see how this is not a double-digit win for the Chicago Bears. Sans no Khalil Mack. Chicago 27, Buffalo 13. The play here is actually over 37.5 rather than the -10. I feel better about the over because I think the back door could be open late, potentially, for Buffalo. The Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings, 1 o'clock on Fox. Detroit's 3-4, Minnesota's 4-3-1. This is probably the game that Kevin Burkhardt will be calling this weekend. The Lions are coming off a lousy home loss against the Seattle Seahawks. The Vikings are coming off a disappointing home loss in primetime against the New Orleans Saints. The Vikings usually take care of business against their divisional opponents in their home building, and that will be the case here. Minnesota 24, Detroit 23. Minnesota's laying 5. The over-under is 49. The over is the play here. Kansas City Chiefs at the Cleveland Browns. Kansas City 7-1. Cleveland 2-5-1. 1 o'clock on CBS. The Chiefs are coming off a divisional home win over the Denver Broncos. The Browns are coming off a divisional road loss in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, in which led to the firing of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. The Chiefs are just way better than the Browns and will take care of business on the road. Kansas City 33, Cleveland 16. The number is 8 in favor of the Chiefs. The over-under is 52. 33 plus 16 equals 49. So I'm going to make a ballsy play here and take the under 52 because I think, like that Bears game, I think the back door is always open for the Browns. New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins, 1 o'clock on CBS. Jets 3-5, Miami 4-4. The Jets are coming off a road loss in Chicago against the Bears. The Dolphins are coming off a bad Thursday night road loss in Houston against the Texans. Brock Osweiler is starting again in place of Ryan Tannehill. And I don't love either of these teams, especially this Jets team on the road. The Dolphins have already beaten the Jets this year, so there's a revenge argument for the Jets. But I like the Dolphins here to get a big win to get over 500. So Miami 27, Jets 20. I think Miami covers the 2.5. The over-under is 43.5. Although the over is a good play too. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. 1 o'clock on CBS. This is a guaranteed Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson game. Steelers 4-2-1, Baltimore 4-4. The Steelers are coming off a good divisional road win, it was a home win against the Cleveland Browns. The Ravens are coming off a disappointing road loss in in Charlotte against the Panthers. This is the best of the early slate games. Duh. Well, I already said that. I think Jim Nantz and Tony Romo will be on the call here. And Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to say, leads the Steelers here to a big win, which would be their 4th straight. Pittsburgh 33, Baltimore 26. Pittsburgh's getting 2.5. I'll take the 2.5 and run. The over-under's 47. Houston Texans at the Denver Broncos, 4:05 on CBS. The Texans are coming off a Thursday night home win over the Miami Dolphins. The Broncos are coming off a tough divisional road loss in Kansas City against the Chiefs. The Broncos absolutely have to have this game if they want a chance to stay in the AFC playoff hunt. I believe they'll snap the Texans' 5-game winning streak, sans the addition of now former Bronco Demaryius Thomas. So give me Denver 26-20. They'll lay the point. The over-under is 46. I believe they're straight on with the over-under, but Denver will get the cover. I forgot a 1 o'clock game. That's the Panthers hosting the Bucs. 1 o'clock on Fox. The Bucs are coming off a heartbreaking road loss in Cincinnati against the Bengals, in which Ryan Fitzpatrick led the comeback, replacing the bench Jameis Winston. The Panthers are coming off a big home win over the Baltimore Ravens. The Panthers are being overlooked as a contender, and I think they'll put together a great performance against a subpar Bucs team. Carolina 34, Tampa Bay 17. They'll cover the 6 easily. The over-under is 55. Although I would take a little stab on the under. Back to the 4 o'clock games. The Chargers at the Seahawks, 4:05 on CBS. This feels like the Iron Eagle game. This is quietly a real nice game. The Chargers are coming off their bye, and 2 weeks ago, they won in London against the Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks are coming off a nice road win in Detroit against the Lions. I like how the Seahawks have been playing of late, and I like them to win here at home, led by Russell Wilson and their quietly good run game. So Seattle 30, Chargers 24. How is Seattle an underdog in this game? They're getting the point. Give me the point. Seattle's winning outright, as I just said. The over-under is 47.5. And the game of the year in the NFL so far. The undefeated 8-0 Rams at the 7-1 New Orleans Saints. 4:25 on Fox. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews on the call. The Rams are coming off a close home win over the Green Bay Packers. The Saints are coming off a big-time road win in primetime in Minneapolis against the Vikings in what was a revenge game for them. The Saints really have a knack of winning big games in their home building since Drew Brees has been under center for them, and that'll be the case here as they hand the Rams their first defeat of the season. 34-27 Saints. And they're getting that point. Give me that point. Give me that point. The over-under is 58.5, by the way. Green Bay Packers at the New England Patriots, 8:20 on NBC. Green Bay's 3-1. Patriots are 6-2. This is only the second time that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady have faced off against each other. The Packers are coming off a brutal loss in Los Angeles against the Rams, in which the traded Ty Montgomery fumbled a kickoff return after the Rams took the lead late in the fourth quarter. The Pats are coming off a win over the Buffalo Bills on a Monday night game. And the Pats are just a better team. They'll have the home crowd behind them. They get the win. Let's say 37-27. They're a 5-point favorite. The over-under is 56.5. 37-27 equals 64. So let's go with the over. I feel better about the over because I wouldn't rule out Aaron Rodgers keeping this game tight. So give me the over 56.5 with the Patriots winning. Monday Night Football, the Tennessee Titans at the Dallas Cowboys, 8:15 ESPN. Joe Tessitore, Jason Witten. By the way, Jason Witten's first game as a broadcaster in Dallas. Booger McFarland, Lisa Salters on the call. Both teams are 3-4. The Titans are coming off a bye in 2 weeks ago. They had the brutal loss in London against the Chargers due to some poor coaching decisions by Mike Vrabel. The Cowboys are coming off their bye in 2 weeks ago. They lost in Landover against the Redskins courtesy of a missed field goal, in which would have tied the game for them. Awful game, but give me the boys at home. Dallas wins 23-19. The over-under is 40.5. Give me the Titans to cover the 5.5. That's the play here, because I don't think Dallas should be favored by more than 5 against any team that's not terrible. And I don't think the Titans are terrible. I just think they're bad. Last thing I'm going to do is make my "You Can Bank on That" bet. Courtesy of FanDuel, get your game face on. My bet last night, I placed a big wager of $1 on some NBA teams. I put the Clippers on there. They lost. I just thought something was funky going on with the Sixers. I put the Hawks on there as an underdog on the money line. That turned out to be a flop as the Kings go to 6-3 on the year. I also put the Cleveland Cavaliers on there with Denver on the second of a back-to-back. That was a flop. And the other game I put on there was a loser too. I put Charlotte in on the money line against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Russell Westbrook and company found a way to win. So here we go. This is going to be a small wager. I'm only going to throw 12 cents on it. I don't feel great about it. So here we go. I'm going to hold my breath, and I'm going to take the Indiana Pacers on the money line in Chicago against the Bulls. And I'm going to hold my breath and take the Dallas Mavericks on the money line against the New York Knicks. I'm going to take the Utah Jazz on the money line at home against the Memphis Grizzlies. And don't forget that the Grizzlies beat the Jazz in Utah earlier in the year. I'm going to take the Raptors minus 650 in Phoenix against the Suns. I'm going to hold my breath for that. And then we're going to take the Golden State Warriors at minus 800 against the dysfunctional Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm going to throw college football on there, and I'm going to take Virginia minus 280 against Pitt, Middle Tennessee minus 530 against Western Kentucky. And I'm going to avoid the Arizona game because I wouldn't be shocked if Colorado won. Although I did just say in the podcast about a half hour ago how I wouldn't be shocked if the Phoenix Suns won against the Raptors because of the Raptors being on the West Coast. I just think that game might just be a little closer than the experts think. So I'm going to do those 7 teams. It pays me to a plus 404, putting only a stinker of 12 cents on it to win 49. Again, that is the Pacers, the Mavs, the Jazz, the Raptors, the Warriors, Virginia, and Middle Tennessee as the bet for tonight. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping college football, NBA, NHL, and go over any other news that happens in the world of sports. I already talked about Clayton Kershaw re-signing with the Dodgers early in the podcast, so we don't have to go over that again. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.